21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
So I started my first business at the age of 8. I was cutting grass in the neighborhood. And as an 8-year-old kid, I was making about $200 a week. Which, again, for an 8-year-old kid, is freedom. I had no bills, no expenses, so I could just say, hey, Mom, take me to the toy store, and I could buy whatever I want, and that felt great. That led me to a whole bunch of different other businesses, and every industry you could possibly think of, to the point that I defined myself and my success based on how much money I had, how much my watch cost, the vacations I would go on, my house, my cars, the traditional things that people glorify as success. All of that came to a head for me October 29th in 2019, 8:45 p.m. I come home from work, and again, it's 8:45 at night. It is my son's 6th birthday, and I walk in the door. Kids are happy to see me, but they're exhausted, they're tired, they had a long day, and I say, hey, let's sing happy birthday, because that's the important thing to do. I wanted to celebrate my son. And my wife pulls out the cake and puts it on the table, and half of it is gone. And I realized in that moment, as I'm standing there, I've got this half-eaten birthday cake that I missed being there for my son's birthday. And I stood there thinking, is this actually success? Like, all these things that I've accomplished, I've got a beautiful car in the driveway, I'm standing in a nice house, I've got 2 beautiful, healthy kids, I've got my wife next to me. Am I successful? Like, what does this all mean if I can't even physically be here for my son's birthday? And to this day, I couldn't tell you what I was doing that was so important that I couldn't be home on time or regular or take the day off or at least be there for that moment. And standing there, I made a promise to myself that I was going to have no more half-cake experiences. And that's where the term for me, no half cakes, comes from, is that promise that I made to myself then that I wasn't going to accept less, right? I wanted the whole thing. And for me, it wasn't just about the physical birthday cake. It was about being successful in my financial journey, my professional journey, my emotional journey, my relationships, my spiritual journey. And just really being every part of my life operating in excellence, not just, hey, you've got a 10-figure business, but you're on the brink of divorce, you've got no relationship with your kids, you're in the worst physical shape of your life. Like, that was my reality standing there in that moment, realizing I've done all the things that people want to do, right? When people think about being successful, they think about achieving all these things, this Wikipedia page of accomplishments. But if you come home and you don't even recognize yourself, you've got no self-confidence, you've got really just crumbs of a life behind the scenes, that wasn't actually successful. For me, the next step at that point, once I realized, like, this is my rock bottom, was not only making the promise to myself, but what do I do from here? And I had a good friend, Steve Weatherford at the time, who still one of my best friends to this day, gave me an example of possibility. And he had recently won the Super Bowl and went through an experience where he realized, for him, now that I've done that, now what? Like, it didn't make me a better person. It just left this this feeling of now what, right? And this emptiness and this depression inside, that all the worldly accomplishments you could possibly want, everyone thinks that's the best thing ever, it still left him feeling empty. And he went on this journey where he tried to figure out, hey, how do I become the best version of myself? And for me, it was seeing someone else go through that and be this definition of possibility that gave me hope that, hey, here's someone who I know who accomplished a lot, but also still felt this emptiness, still felt this incompleteness, and then went on to go through this process and could be someone I could lean on as a mentor, as a friend, as a guide to continue to figure out, where do we go from here? So for me, kind of my next step throughout that journey was getting more closely aligned, was admitting that, hey, this version of me that I'm in right now, that has, like I said, no self-confidence, it has a terrible relationship with my wife, it has no relationship with my kids, no relationship with myself, to really start shifting, all right, how do we fix that? It was accepting the fact that I'm not going to be defined by this moment as a limit, but as a starting point, right? To figure out, hey, this thing that feels really painful, I don't want to come back to this. I want to use this as fuel to grow from. And getting together with people who are on similar journeys and who are a little bit ahead of you, who've done that, it gave me hope. It gave me this feeling that, hey, if he can do it, I can do it too. And it gave me a resource to lean on when I'm feeling whatever the feeling is. Someone to talk to, someone to say, hey, what do you think I should do? Or how do I navigate this scenario? And for me, that was really one of the biggest helps to start climbing out of that situation, to figure out what real success actually looked like. Here we are in 2024, 5 years later, and where I'm at now is drastically different from where I was. So at the time, I had my marketing agency, I had a couple other different businesses that I was involved in. Now at this point, I'm involved in, I think, 3 or 4 more from that time period. All of them have grown tremendously from where I was. And it was a point in time where I thought, the only way this business is going to survive is if I hustle and grind and work 18-hour days. Now, most days I start work at 10 o'clock in the morning and I'm done by 3 o'clock. I go pick up my kids from school. We go do homework. We have sports at night. We got whatever it is. We make dinner. We hang out. And it's a drastically different life. Now, I want to emphasize the importance of that is that it wasn't easy, right? There was a lot of work involved in that process. But the end result is, now I have additional businesses that I'm responsible for. The original ones are more successful than they were, and I'm involved less from a time perspective, from a hustle and grind perspective than I was back then. And I want to continue to go on this journey just as an example of possibility for other people who are sitting in that spot where they think, hey, I've got this business that I want to be truly successful at. It's going to require me to sacrifice my family or to figure out, hey, all of this stuff is going to have to wait. And I just want to be a definition of possibility for one person listening, that it doesn't have to be that way. You could build this life where instead of trying to figure out, hey, how do I fit my life into my job or my career or my professional accomplishments, the other way around, where you build the life that you want, where every day you wake up and you feel joy and you feel freedom, and your work, your professional career fits into that, not the other way around. how is an important question. And, I think it's a simple one to answer, but not always easy to execute on. And the simplest answer I can give you is being your authentic self. Now, why do I think that's important? When you operate as your authentic self, it resolves a whole lot of problems for you. First of all, you understand that you have no image to maintain. You can make decisions very simply about what should you do in such a scenario because you have a set of core values. You know who you are. You know very clearly what's right and what's wrong, and you don't sit there and deliberate on, should I do this, should I do that, what can I do in this scenario. You understand what aligns with who you are and what doesn't. And if it does not align with you, right out the door. You don't have to worry about it. So you're able to save a tremendous amount of time, and you're able to really align your life with things that fit your core values, with who you are, with the life that you want. You don't start sacrificing the things in your business that are important to you, the things in your personal life that are important to you, just to make a quick dollar. And I know for a lot of people who have an entrepreneurial spirit, there's an inclination to just say yes. Whatever the client wants, just say yes. You'll figure it out later. And what winds up happening is your business starts to creep wider and wider, right? And a lot of people want to have all these multiple income streams. But what they fail to realize is when you do that, you're really diluting the ones that make the most actual impact. They're the ones that you can operate in from the purest form of yourself, where it doesn't take a ton of energy. It doesn't take a ton of your soul to just perform in that way because it's natural for you. So for me, the how, right, feels a little separate because a lot of people want this ninja level trick or this tactic to be able to grow their business, or to plug it into some chat GPT automation to instantly get more leads and to become more successful overnight. I don't recommend that. Yes, absolutely, there are ways to automate your business, but it comes after, right? It comes after you figure out who you are, who your business is, what are the core values, what does your authentic self look like? And when you operate from that, it provides you so much freedom and such a secure base to build your life around when you know who you are. So for me, the strongest how I could possibly recommend is to spend as much time as possible with yourself, figuring out who you are, understanding what's important to you, what are your priorities, having a sense of urgency, understanding that you might not have tomorrow. So not wasting today, not wasting the time that you get on things that don't truly matter, understanding what your priorities are, and operating in that zone where everything you do is focused around how do you live your best life, right? And when you can operate from that spot, which again is a simple concept, not always easy to execute. When you can do that, it allows you to be in a position where things flow, right? You don't have to wear multiple hats. You don't have to be the marketing person and have a totally different frame of mind, and then come home and try and be dad and be a totally different person, or try and be in a relationship. You're you. Your core values don't change depending upon who's on the other end of the phone, right? So when you can operate from that spot where you are who you are, and you are not worried that someone's going to criticize you or not be your client because you don't cater to their specific core values, it's yours. It is your core value. It is who you are. And you don't change who you are based on who you see. You are who you are, and you show up that way authentically. It allows everything to just flow so much smoother, and to the point that you're able to really be in that work-life harmony, right? And I don't believe work-life balance exists. For me, I think work-life balance is an excuse a lot of people use to stop working and go play. I really believe that harmony is the thing that we're after, because for me, the harmony is the integration of both. Like, a lot of people say, hey, let's work hard and play hard. Let's go suffer through this hustle and grind of work and then go do something totally opposite. What winds up happening is you're wasting so much energy changing masks, changing the hats in between both of those, that you wind up as the shell of yourself in both spots. When you're working, you're thinking about, you want to be at home, you want to be with your friends and family. When you're with your friends and family, all you can think about is the stuff that you should be doing at work. Where when you start to operate as your authentic self, what winds up happening is those worlds combine. There is harmony between them, where for you, doing your career is fun. There are friends and family at your career, right? And it starts to bring everything together to the point that it does not become stressful for you to switch between one and the other, because there's such a fluid change from one spot to the other. It almost becomes indistinguishable. You can operate in both spots because you're you. You don't have to show up as a totally different person in both spots to start dealing with an employee to dealing with your kid, right? Because your core values are the same. You just have to express them in a way that is pure to you. So my best advice for how would be showing up as yourself and understanding who you truly are. When you do the work on yourself and you figure that out, the rest of it starts to fall into place. I think the best way to start transitioning from where you are to where you want to be is alignment. Now, I would say getting yourself aligned with someone who is slightly ahead of you on that journey. I don't want to call it a coach or a mentor. It's really alignment with a friend. And it might very well be a friend that you have to pay initially if you are not necessarily around someone who can give you that. But getting around someone who can help you see yourself for who you are, to accept you for who you are, to stand beside you with where you're at and understand that you are not necessarily limited by your current position, but help you see the potential you have in yourself. Now, finding someone like that, again, not always easy because you need to find someone who's done the work. Okay, and there are resources. I'm happy to volunteer myself. If you need someone to be that person for you, please reach out, because I do believe that when you find that person who can come alongside you and take the walk with you, it allows you to have the space you need to kind of relax, to figure out, like, I don't need to pretend to be somebody else. I've got a person in my life who's willing to accept me for the mess that I currently am and see the potential that I could be. And I think that when you put yourself in a position to be alongside someone who gives you that space, it sort of gives you the permission to stop pretending that you have it all figured out. And there's this situation where, and I do it with a couple of my buddies often, maybe every 6 months or so, we'll have what we call a lemonade party. We'll call out each other's faults, the areas that we are not strong in. And it's not a place that we come to be offended, but we come to grow. And we can only see so much about ourselves. But our friends, the people that we spend a lot of time with, they see through that. So for us, it's a process where we say, hey, here's an area where I see you might be lacking, an area that you maybe are blind to. Maybe, just an example, one time you had bad breath and you can't smell your own breath, but you had a friend say, hey, just so you know, your breath smells pretty funky, right? It's a thing that you might want to know, but you're just blind to yourself because you spend so much time in your own world. You can't see things the way that other people see you. So when you get alongside other people who are able to show you, and not in a malicious way, but in a way that is loving and supporting, to say, hey, here's how you're showing up right now. And it could be how you're showing up for yourself, could be how you're showing up in your relationships. But when you come at it from an area of being unoffendable, where you're taking all this input and you're asking people for, hey, where do I suck right now? And that sounds crazy because when you're first starting out in this journey, you're going to be in this defense position where you are not wanting to hear any of that, right? Because you are in a position of feeling like, hey, maybe I don't have it all figured out. The last thing I need is someone to tell me, hey, by the way, you also suck at this, right? So I want to just emphasize that's later in the journey. The first thing you need is someone to help you unpack yourself and to be comfortable with where you're at, knowing that, hey, this is not necessarily the limit of where I am. This is my starting point, right? So the very first thing I recommend is when you start, get alongside someone who's going to give you that space and grace to be yourself, right? That's going to help you start to unpack and give you a better understanding of where you are at. Once you go through that, you start to accept and want that feedback to come in. You want people to tell you areas that you need growth in. It's a new area for you to grow. And if you truly want to be the best version of yourself, you look for those opportunities. You look for places that you're not showing up your best. And it's not a negative, it's a positive. You start to, and that's why we call them parties. It's this thing where, you're turning lemons into lemonade. You're turning things that might otherwise be this critical negative experience where someone says, hey, you suck in this area. You say, hey, show me where I can be better. And when you get that feedback, again, from a loving source meant out of kindness, again, that's a really important part to have, is those people alongside you who are going to be there to love and support you. You're able to figure out, hey, all right, cool, got it. Message received, I will grow in this area. And for me, it's just a continual process of trying to be your best self, and not that there's ever going to be an end to that. Because I believe for me, success is operating in excellence in all areas and the journey of it, not a destination I'm ever going to reach and say, hey, now I'm successful. For me, success is being at my best at all times. And sometimes your best is only 40%. It's only 50%, right? It's where are you at today? I know I've got room to grow. When you talk to me in 2 years from now, 2 months from now, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be a different version of myself because I'm going to continue to do that work. But for me today, if I can operate at the very best that I have to give, and I can show up for myself, that's what success means to me. For me, the next best step from here is starting to have that conversation and figure out, what is my best version look like? What does the future look like for me? It's a conversation that I love to have with people, and just sit and listen and let them explore in a comfortable environment where they've got the freedom and the grace they need to just express, hey, here's where I'm at. And I have these conversations with people, probably 5 to 10 a week. Some of them are random. Some of them are people who come to me specifically for this. But it's an opportunity to release. It's an opportunity to just be yourself, and to let go of all this stuff, this weight you've been carrying for all these years. And, one of the things I love the most about this opportunity is having had the background in business for literally 30 years, from making all the money, from having the cars, from having the houses, from having all of the stuff, from going through the hustle and grind experience. We're able to have a conversation that's a little bit different than going to a coach or a mentor. That it's not just, hey, teach me how to be the best version of myself and do yoga and meditation and everything that's woo, feels good. But like, actually, how do I literally take this thing that I'm in, because we operate in the real world where you still have bills to pay, you still have a business to run, you still have all these things to do. How do you do all of that at the same time you figure yourself out and grow in all these areas? There is no one size fits all answer to that. So while I would love to say, hey, here are these ninja level tactics that you can operate, and you can take and put in place today to be this best version of yourself, every person's story is personal. So what I really recommend, the best course of action, is sit down and have that conversation. And again, if that's a conversation you want to have with me, my information will be here. You're more than welcome to reach out and I'll have that conversation with you. I would love nothing more. But when you have that conversation, you figure out, hey, let's lay out all the ingredients on the table. Here's where I'm at with my business. I'm working 16-hour days. I'm getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm coming home at 8 o'clock at night. I answer my email 24/7. Like, what are the things that are a struggle point for me in the business? What are the things that are a struggle point for me in my relationships? I'm got no relationship with my wife, or I hardly see my kids, or I'm looking for a potential mate and I can't find one because I've been prioritizing my business over my personal life. Like trying to unpack all the things, understanding that there is no wrong answer. Okay, wherever you're at in that scenario is fine. It's a starting point. But the clearer that we can define the starting point, the easier it is to kind of figure out what are the directions we need to follow to get to our end result. So for me, I think that the best next steps, and if you think about it like this, if you're old enough to remember MapQuest, when you used to have to get directions from one place to the other, we didn't have our phones in our cars. We didn't have the GPS. We had to go type in the starting point, type in the destination. We had a printout of, all right, how do we get from A to B? If you don't clearly define the starting point, no directions I could possibly give you will get you to your destination because I don't know where you are. So the very first thing we do is we figure out, how, where am I now? Where is my starting point? And again, it doesn't matter how messy, how chaotic it feels. It is what it is. Okay, let's start with where we're at. Let's get a good, honest look at, hey, here's where we are. And again, coming from someone who has been broke, I've been on the brink of divorce, I've been in all of these things that you think are the worst possible scenario to be in. You get it, I understand. Okay, all of these things suck. They truly do, but they are not a limit for you. So I want to just share that with you. And again, we can have these conversations personally where if there's a thing that you're struggling with, I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that there is someone who has been there, been through it, and is willing to come back and go shoulder to shoulder with you again through it. Because what you have ahead of you is so much greater than where you've been. But you need to understand where you are, and then you need to clearly define, what is my life supposed to look like? What is it that I want out of life? Paint that picture for what your ideal life looks like. And not just a metric, not just a KPI, not just figuring out how many subscribers you have or what your profit line looks like. Include that too. But how do you feel when you wake up? How do you feel when you come home from work for the day? How do you feel when you walk in your house? Is that peace? Is that joy? Is that freedom? Right? What does that feel like for you? Then we figure out, how do we get from point A to point B? Right? And that's when we break it down to make it really simple. I'm all about simple steps. And it's not always about, here's the next 30 things you need to do. How do I get a tad better today? Like, what are the things I need to do today to be the best possible version of myself? And that's an ongoing process. It's a process that you need someone by your side to help carry you through that, to figure out, all right, cool, I have this awesome plan for how do I optimize my day so I can grow my business and then show up for myself. But all of a sudden, as an entrepreneur, something happened. And like, how often does that happen in the course of your life where you need to just stop everything and cater to this one specific thing that comes up? Happens all the time. So for me, what I find the most effective thing is having that resource next to you where you can say, oh man, I thought I had it all figured out, but then suddenly this happened. What do I do? And it's like ringing that bell that says, hey, I need help, and getting the help you need before it runs out of control. Because a lot of times our first instinct is we turn inward, right? As an entrepreneur, as a problem solver, you want to solve all those problems yourself. You want to be the one to put the fireman's hat on and put the fire out and figure out, how do I win the day and get through all this stuff? But what happens when we do that is ultimately we wind up setting ourselves further back. So to have a resource where you can lean on to be that person in your life that can give you the kind of next step, right? That for me, I had it with my friend Steve. I had it with my friend Chris. I've got a couple of people in my life who I can lean on in that scenario. And I cannot tell you how critically important it has been for the continued growth of all this to have that person by your side to really help you see the next step, right? And it's not something that you necessarily have to have every day, but it's a check-in. It's like bringing your car to the mechanic every 6 months just to make sure it's in good running condition. The longer you wait, the more of a mess you create, right? Things are going to happen. Life is going to happen, especially as someone who is an entrepreneur. You've got things running 24/7. You have to have people in your corner who are going to be with you to help you be your best self and to support you on that journey. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of having that person in your life.
Here in this room, I'm gold. But still the day is young. And I'm only halfway down. We've come so far. We're on the move now.
So if you do have questions and you're looking for someone to talk to, again, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you. You can reach me through any social media at Jim Sabellico. NoHalfCakes.com is where you can find me as well. I would, again, more than happy to have this conversation, even if it's not, you want to become a actual client of mine, right? This is not for that. I don't do this for the money part. Like I said before, I've got other businesses I'm involved in plenty. I do this for the people. I enjoy and get so much satisfaction of seeing other people be their best self. For me, like I said, that moment where I stood there in front of a half a cake hurt a lot. Looking back on it, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the experience that I was able to, quote unquote, hit rock bottom and realize life is more than that. But had I not had the person next to me to show me an example of what's possible, I honestly couldn't tell you where I'd be. And for me, I know that now that I've been through that process, it's a duty for me to go back and be that example of possibility for somebody else. And that's really why I do this and continue to push as hard as I do in this area is, look, all of us struggle. And I think having an example of possibility, having someone in your corner to listen to you, to not to judge you, but to make space and walk alongside you in that process is what we need. We don't need people to criticize us. We don't need people to call us names. We don't need people to judge us. We need people to give us the space and grace to be our best selves and to hold up that mirror to show us kind of where we are at and what we are capable of. And for me, having the opportunity to do that for somebody else is really just a way that I can pay back the people who've done that for me. And if that's something I could do for you, I'd be more than honored to do so.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.